I want to see a fair trial myself. Why do you think being fair belongs to Europe or US or anybody? Not
You've spoken a lot about democracy, and I would just like to point to the accusations of human rights abuses in terms of the elimination of your political opponents or the oppression of the press, and I would just like to hear your comments towards that.
No, I would like to hear your comments because for me, it's like, you know, it's always difficult to accuse me of anything and then say, prove yourself innocent. I think I want to turn it to you and say, prove me guilty. That's where the problem lies. You know, the press or human rights groups, or what they say about me personally or about Rwanda, when you are in Rwanda and are dealing with these decent human beings also in Rwanda, and they tell you their own stories, you won't trace even 0.001% of what they're talking about. Okay. The real life there is completely different from what the young girl is talking about. Absolutely different. But people will stay here, will be here in the US and wherever, and they've never even been to Rwanda, they've never met Rwandans. The real Rwandans, they are there. Rwandans are there. The real people of Rwanda who are no different from you, what you aspire to be, to have, to do, they are no different. But it's as if Rwandans, Rwanda is treated like a botanical garden where you just go and water flowers and, you know, no, human beings like anyone in this room. Absolutely. So these so-called human don't know what. I tell you, half of my life I've been living in the trenches, not sure of living to the next day. I didn't fight to be the president of my country. Never. It came by accident, I think. So I was fighting for my own rights, which anyone in any human rights organization could not give me. And even now cannot give me or cannot give Rwandans. So it's cynical and absurd that anyone would just be there talking about violations, you know, me as the leader of my own people to be accused of violating their rights. It's just an absurd insult. But my answer is simple, is to do my best to serve my people the best way they can be served. That is the answer.
In the east of Congo, the security situation continues to be very bad. Some say it continues to deteriorate. The Congolese government has decreed a state of siege in two areas, Ituri and North Kivu, for 30 days, maybe longer. Is this a good move? Do you agree with it?
It is a good move to begin with, but that alone is not enough. It's what is done following the decision that is also equally important.
Because the Congolese military's record is not great, so I mean, put them in charge is maybe not such a good idea.
Yeah, but you see, again, these are some of the things that distort the picture. Here we talk about the Congolese military not being fully in charge or not being the best. But we have also had the UN forces and the UN from outside for now 24 years. So talking about the Congolese military not being the best or good in any way, and then forgetting the fact that you have actually, the world has put a force there. Not only, and that force that has been put there for the last 24 years spend 1.5 billion US dollars. So you calculate how much. Surely those people who do that need to be saying, well, this has been the outcome. You know, we got value for our money this way. Nothing to show for it. So this again, and it is the whole background of that situation in the region, Congo, what we have just talked about, this happened, but there are still these responsibilities of the world that are kept, you know, silent or put underground. And nobody says, yeah, but what have you been there for 24 years? You went there to solve a problem. What happened?
It's a failure.
I think it's a big, big failure. It's an understatement to say it's a failure.
UN experts are saying that Rwandan troops are already intervening in the DRC and already conducting operations. That an example?
Yeah, but I wish they could go beyond that and ask themselves, meaning the UN, why would Rwanda have to go to Congo at all when they are the ones responsible for the situation?
Yes, but does that mean that you're acknowledging that Rwandan troops
No,
are in the DRC?
No, I'm acknowledging that the UN making that report is actually a failure in the Congo. That's what I'm
Their
talking
failure.
about. Yes, total failure.
But so are Rwandan troops in the DRC as we speak?
No, if we were there, we wouldn't be failing. I assure you, we wouldn't fail to deal with the problem.
President Tshisekedi also made a surprise announcement recently. He said that Kenyan troops would be sent to the region. There are also reports of Ugandan troops. Are you in favor of foreign countries sending their troops to deal with this security issue in the east of the DRC?
There are already foreign troops in DRC. As foreign as the people who come from 10,000 miles away. I'm talking about the UN.
Right.
So that's not...
So it's enough, or is this...
So I'm saying, if you are looking for foreigners as a big problem, we already have a big problem, because what does somebody from 10,000 miles away know about the DRC? But we have them there. That's one thing. Second, I am for DRC being able to make a decision they think is appropriate and act upon that. DRC should be able to make its own decisions. They should have the freedom to do so. If they want to work with their neighbors, I think, why should people see that as a problem? Whichever neighbors they want to work with, whether it is Uganda, Rwanda, Angola, Congo Brazzaville, Zambia, Tanzania, Burundi, there are so many neighbors of Congo. If they want to work with them to deal with a particular problem they think one country or the other can help in, I think we should all welcome it. And again, for me, the issue is, once they've done it, let's see what the results are. Let's judge them by the results. I'm sure they would do that expecting to address the problem, not just for people to come and create another problem. So I think it would be a welcome idea. I mean, to first leave it to DRC to make their decisions, and we accept that. Yes. But stop this whole thing. This is what I was saying. You have a UN MONUSC in DRC for 20-something years. You have troops from different countries, from Asia, from Latin America, from Africa, they are there. They've been there for over 20 years. Why are we talking about this problem? Where one country is doing this, or if no, will you allow this country to come in? No, but tell me what these ones are doing. The same people who are reporting against any neighboring country being in Congo, working with the Congolese government, are the same people who have forces there for over 2 decades. Right. So, and doing nothing. So why don't we first answer that question?
So coming back to Rwanda and your internal problems, as you mentioned them, Paul Rusesabagina is currently on trial in Kigali, and he's charged with 9 counts, including terrorism for his alleged support to an armed group. He claims that he never condoned violence.
Yes. One, he's not alone, by the way, in the trial. There are 20-something people who are being tried together with him. They were together in committing these crimes against Rwanda and Rwandans. They are all appearing in court. And in fact, and some of them, a few of them, are giving overwhelming evidence against him because he was their leader. And they produce this evidence in court. Now, there is what he says. He may deny a number of things, but 2 things. One, there are actually things he said publicly that even implicate him, that confirm what these other accused are saying about him. But they came from him.
Such as?
Oh, when he publicly said he's going to make sure that he unseats, brings down the government of Rwanda. And when an interviewer, there are these tapes about him. He hasn't denied, even in the court of law. They said, are you the one who is saying this? He said, yes, because it is obvious. So, and when he was talking about that and talking about his being a leader of some of these organizations. So how does really one, how do you say, this man is innocent? And in any case, let's assume he's innocent. What is the problem with him becoming innocent in the court of law? The court of law will decide on this. So I don't see why people make a lot of noise. He's in the court of law. He's not just being, hidden somewhere under arrest. He's in the court of law, like many others. Yes.
Well, you were saying, why do people make a lot of noise? Also, I think probably because the way he was arrested. I mean, he says he was tricked into coming to Rwanda. And
what's wrong with tricking a criminal you're looking for?
Well, if he is but
if he was
suspected.
If he is suspected, right. If he is suspected and is tricked into availing himself. Now, the next step is, when you get him, where do you put him? If it is in the court of law, I think that's okay.
Well, the US, the EU, others have expressed their concerns about him getting a fair trial. When they say this, they suspect that this is actually not the case because of the way he was tricked and because they don't think he will get a fair trial. I mean, you have to be concerned when you hear this.
Sure. Well, the US, or, I don't know. I think what we are calling US or EU is just what his wife or his daughter are saying or doing, and they go tell people all kinds of lies.
Well, the governments make their own judgments as well, I mean, when they say this.
So when they said what? Because I don't even understand.
They're calling for a fair and transparent trial, which means they suspect he's not getting one.
I am calling for fair trial against him myself. So it's not UK or US or European Union. No. I want to see a fair trial myself. Why do you think being fair belongs to Europe or US or anybody else, not to us? Why? This is how people, you see, end up being caught up in some of these useless things, and they end up being racist. It's like the only thing to be fair in Rwanda or in Africa, it has to be supervised by Europe or US or some other place. No, absolutely not. I am for fair trial myself. That's why he's in the court of law. Something else could have happened to him if we were just people who do things anyhow. Yes, but he's in the court of law. So why don't people respect our processes?
Well, maybe the concern is because several think tanks or organizations have accused your regime of suppressing all type of dissent. And I'll give you another example, the one of the arrest of the gospel singer, Kizito Mihigo, who became a critic of your regime. He was accused of inciting hatred, and he died in police custody. The official version is suicide, but human rights organizations are doubting that.
Yes, I can't decide what human rights organizations believe or not believe. For me, I rely on facts.
But there's concerns that...
The concerns will be there, but who tells you I don't have those concerns myself? But everything is cleared through investigation and through the court of law.
So would you accept a probe? They're calling for an independent investigation.
Independent what? You mean we should always be having independent investigation for things that happen here in Paris or in France? If somebody dies and somebody comes up and says, no, this man was killed by the police or by somebody. So should we always have independent investigation to find out the truth? Or you are saying, no, your countries don't deserve that, or don't really have to be believed until we have validated it. Is that what is being said? Yeah.
What do you answer then to those who accuse you of not allowing political space for the opposition?
I'm not responsible for the opposition.
No, but they're saying you're not
That's
allowing
not my
them to
business.
exist.
How? How can I stop them? How can I stop them?
How can you stop them?
Yes. How do I stop them?
By going after them?
No, by actually having a bigger following than them. That's how they get stopped. It's not me who stops them. I'm not responsible in any way. No, I don't. When we go for elections, I don't go campaigning for the opposition. I campaign for myself. That's none of my business. So, you can accuse me of all kinds of things. But if I want to turn around and accuse you of what I think you should be accused of, what do you say? We were talking about earlier about the problems between France and Rwanda, right? Which we are trying to address. So which means I can have a number of things I am accusing France of, or UK, or US, or you think that, no, these are above reproach, you shouldn't be talking about it, they can only talk about you. But again, this is what I was saying. Some of us don't accept that. We just,
To finish, Mr. President, you've been head of state for 21 years. The next presidential elections are in 3 years.
Yes.
Will you be running?
Above all, I wish God continues to give me good health, right? That's at a personal level. The rest of politics, Rwandans will decide, and maybe I can also decide personally. I can decide even when Rwandans say, no, we still want you, that is something important. But I can say, you know what? I feel I need to go and do something else. But for
Such as?
There are many things I can do. I can just go home and rest, read books, maybe write some things. recollect what has been happening in my life and things that I have gone through and what my country has gone through. This is a whole occupation that would make me busy. But for whether I'm going to run next time or sometimes when I'm asked, and I've been asked this question many times, I find it really irrelevant. Why should people be interested in knowing whether you run or not run? This is the affairs of my country. The rest are just bubbling. I don't. Why should I listen to anybody asking me, are you going to be doing this tomorrow? Okay, I'm a free person. I will do whatever I want. And I will do whatever my people want when that fits my moment. That's it. I don't run my life in according to media questions or reports or human rights, this or what, they say no. I think we have had enough of this going around forever, but we have to live our lives. We have in the country, we have to live our politics, we have to live.
The international community fears that, if I have permission to speak bluntly, that, Kagame wants him convicted, rubber stamp court, lock him up and throw away the key. What guarantees can you give today of a fair trial?
All those concerns can't be further from the truth. One, Rusesabagina, a citizen of this country, who has done something terrible or wrong, committed a crime. I have heard that he holds other citizenships of other countries. That's okay. I have no quarrel with that. He certainly did something wrong. And by the way, he is accused with a number of other people. So he's not alone in this case that he's being tried for. So that is also character that must be put forward. So taking him out of that and treating him differently and special, that's not going to work. So the case is going to court, all these people being tried. And it is important that there is a fair trial.
Paul Kagame has been president of Rwanda since the year 2000. The country's constitution has already been amended to allow him to serve more terms. Human Rights Watch claims that opposition figures are persistently targeted. If Kagame wins the next election in 2024, he could hold on to power for more than a decade longer. There's no Western leader that has been in office as long as you have.
Do I care about that?
Because
the Western leader is a Western leader.
Because electorates normally normally throw people out. The nature of electorates and democracies is that people get tired of it and they move to another person.
That is if you are telling me, that everyone has to conform to what the West tells us to do. I'm not one of those people. The Western world is a world on its own. It has many good things that they do. It has many bad things they do.
There's no democratically elected leader in a generally accepted democracy that has been in office as long as you.
Democracy is not defined by the West. No. If it does, then what happens of the contradictions that happen in the West? Where we find countries in the West, they elect their leaders, and then they turn around and start complaining about the same leaders they have elected. So you are telling me democracy, therefore, has imperfections, whether it is in the West or anywhere else. So, but I cannot live by or leave the imperfections. I think it's just ridiculous, because there is nothing like human rights minus these things we are talking about. What we are talking about in terms of development. These are human rights. Development, schools, education, health, and food security. And, when you see Now, the level of poverty has decreased almost by 60%. So these people, these human beings with improved lives and participating in that themselves to improve their own lives, gets lost in what the whole list you've been spelling out as if, what is in Rwanda is really hell. In fact, forgetting the hell that we have gone through, that we stood against and sorted out when you were there just talking about more or less nonsense. Because
do you reject the accusations, for example, from
it's
Amnesty
rubbish,
International?
absolute rubbish.
You reject
Rwanda is completely different from what it was 25 years ago. In fact, maybe you need to be looking around in Europe. You are violating people's rights. When we have this problem of people being bundled and sent back to sink in the Mediterranean and so on, and so many people being mistreated in your own countries, why don't you talk about your human rights and stop just offloading everything?
Well, this is a development conversation, so
no,
in the context of development.
You are not the one to determine what conversation or what points to raise in any conversation. You are asking questions, this is what I'm saying, you are asking questions and you are giving yourself answers. You really need to stop this superiority complex nonsense about human rights. You think you are the only ones who respect human rights, or others it's about violating human rights. No, we've fought for human rights and freedoms of our people much better and more than anyone, including you people who keep talking about this nonsense. Where we have taken our country from and where it is now speaks for itself. The rest of the stories just comes from this complex. These two worlds where there are people who know everything about human rights and all kinds of things, and another world where people are just people who don't know. But these are our human rights. It's not, when we respect the things we respect in our countries, it's not for you, it's not for anybody else, it's for ourselves.
But is it not
So
universal?
you don't sit there. Yes, it is universal, but you don't sit there. If it is universal and you believe it, then you don't become the judge yourself. You don't start telling the others what to do, what they should not to do, or that what they are doing is not to your satisfaction. Who are you?
Well, I'm not sure if we're talking about me personally.
Well, you are the one actually raising these questions. So I think you better interpret it properly so that it is well understood.
Okay.
I could see you asking the questions in a manner that you want to influence the ones listening to us. But that's not correct.
Okay. I'm raising it once again in the context of the United Nations Development Goals.
No, United Nations is us. You see, United Nations is not something alien somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's actually us. We participate.
And the framework for this entire development.
And by the way, I had been leading the Millennium Development Goals before Sustainable Development Goals. I was the co-chair of that with other leaders and some of the leaders in Europe. So you don't turn around, it's like you want...
So you believe that there should be scrutiny on human rights in Europe, in Africa?
No, I believe that you shouldn't be there belittling Africans or leaders of Africa who are trying to...
Oh no, but the conversation about migration is a real conversation about human rights. So you believe that there are valid human rights concerns to be taken into account in this conversation?
Even in Europe, not in Africa.
Not in Africa?
In Europe. In Europe, not only in Africa.
Not, of course.
Yes.
Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you. Mr. President, you were speaking about a modern Africa, and I'm here with the Bay Area Reporter, which is the LGBT newspaper. And for people who don't know what LGBT is, that's the gay and lesbian community. So I'm wondering, you've done so much for women in Rwanda, and they have so much power. I'm wondering, is the LGBT community a part of the future of Rwanda?
Well, I don't know if I understood what you just asked, but I guess I understand. I have understood that. LGBT.
Homosexuality.
Yes. It hasn't been our problem. And we don't intend to make it a problem. So we are struggling with all kinds of problems we have. And as I said earlier, we want to have everybody involved, participating. That means, as I said, being there for each other again is because we mind being supportive of each other, we mind the stability that comes with allowing people to live in harmony. And I think we've made good progress on that. So this far, since, as I said, that is not a big problem for us, I don't want to make it a problem.